The other thing I wanted to bring up is a follow-up of the onions that I pulled. So in a previous video, I also harvested a bunch of red onions because I needed to use this bed here, you'll see in the background, for planting asparagus. And it actually, the asparagus took really well. I need to learn a little bit more about if there's any follow-up care for winter there, but the asparagus itself has lived and is still nice green and frondy, and it's looking pretty good. But in that video, I discussed that I was gonna leave this particular bed here that I'm in front of and leave the onions in longer. That has been about 4 weeks as well, so 3.5 to 4 weeks longer than when I pulled the original red onions that you can see in a previous video. And they were varying in size, but none of them were as big as what you would buy at the grocery store. So I will now dig up these red onions from the same original bulblet bag that the first ones were from and compare sizes there, leaving these in for about 4 weeks longer. I did apply mulch to this bed, as I mentioned in a previous video, just because I wanted to keep the weed control down. That's horseradish popping down there. So I wouldn't necessarily mulch, and haven't necessarily mulched all of my beds with mulch like this, kind of this wood chip mulch. But I had extra, I had the ability to, and it was gonna keep weeds down ideally, so I did do that. There still was some weed growth that came up through here. So all of the green tops of these onions have completely died back now. They are no longer green. In fact, they are brown, completely dead brown, to where I have to kind of dig around to find where the onions were. But you can tell they're a bit larger. If I hold that up, that's getting more comparable to the size you'd find at a grocery store than what those original few were. So we'll dig all these up. Some of them do have a bit of a green. That one didn't get very big. So it's interesting to note that from what I'm seeing thus far, waiting these few extra weeks didn't make a whole huge difference. I'm gonna actually throw this mulch out onto the path, because that's just gonna add mulch to my paths here anyway, so. So what I can see from these is that they really, if I hold this basket up here, there really isn't a whole lot of difference in size from the ones that I picked about 3.5, 4 weeks ago. In fact, some of them look like they didn't grow at all much from even the little bulblets, the little sets that I planted, which happens every year, and there's a myriad of factors involved in that. That may have to do with sunshine, it may have to do with this bed, what else was growing. They just didn't do that great, which is to be expected. There really isn't a harvest that's going to be 100% perfect. So what that showed me was that in the future, should I need to pull those when they first start, there's one more, when they first start topping over instead of waiting till they're totally brown, it didn't seem to make all that much of a growing difference for where we're at. So that's good to know. That's my experiment resolution there. We actually ate, even down to the teeny tiny, we ate all of the other ones that I pulled a few weeks ago. So I don't have any saved to show by comparison, but I can tell just by pulling them up. And if you watch that previous video, you'd be able to tell that there's not much of a difference at all in the growth size, giving that 4 weeks or so difference in this zone of growing for A.